Hey there, HorseCenter fans. Matt and I are back with another exciting edition of the show. Matt, we are talking Derby and we're talking Oaks.
We sure are, Brian. It's the second of three shows from HorseCenter about the big weekend at Churchill Downs.
Big weekend it is, Matt, even if it is the first weekend of September. And we are giving out our top picks in the big races, the Derby, the Oaks. We're going to look at a couple other ones with big horses in there. Should be fun. Watch it all right now here on HorseCenter. Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the excellent pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I am good, Brian. They finally drew the field for the Kentucky Oaks on Monday and for the Kentucky Derby this morning. Only 4 months late, but let's go.
Hey, we're finally here, but it is a great week of racing here in Churchill Downs, Matt, and I want to join you and jump right in. Let's start with the Kentucky Derby, folks. This is going to be our top pick show, so we're going to see who we like best, who we don't like so much, and maybe a few others we'll be throwing into our exotics as we go down this list, Matt. We have the draw, as you said. Finnick the Fierce, 50-1, is on the rail. We talked about a little bit about him before. He's one of those horses that could be, I don't know, farther back. He could be middle of a pace, but I'm not sure I like the rail draw.
No, that certainly doesn't do anything to help Finnick the Fierce. This is a horse that I am not going to be using in any of my wagers.
Yeah, he's a horse without a right eye, and he's interestingly drawn the rail. So that creates 17 horses to his outside without that right eye. I won't be using them either, Matt. The next horse, though, I will be using a little bit. He's Max Player, new to the Steve Asmussen Mart. Max Player's been third in the Belmont, third in the Travers. Now he tries a 1.25 miles again for the Kentucky Derby, Matt. I think he's a horse you can use. The 2-hole might not would have been their first choice, though, is the draw.
Yeah, that's true. But I think the new starting gate and the way they're going to load into the gate, they're going to leave some of the stalls closer to the rail empty. So I think, the inside positions are not quite as horrible as they used to be with the old system. I'm going to use Max Player in my wagers also. So, folks, as Brian and I are going through and we're mentioning horses we're going to use, please keep in mind that our third Kentucky Derby show, which we'll be doing tomorrow, we'll have detailed explanation of our wagers.
That's right. We're going to bring out our suggested wagers on not only the Derby, but the Oaks and a few of the other races intertwined there with the Derby. So you have that to look forward to, get the exact bets we're talking about. But for now, who do we like? I do like Max Player. I think of all the horses who are going to be running late, he is the single most likely to run late and get into the picture, whether that means third in the trifecta, fourth in the superfecta. I think he's got a shot. He's got to work out a trip from that number 2 hole, but I like him. In fact, I like him well enough to make him my number 4 pick for my Kentucky Derby top 4. Matt, the next horse is Enforceable, and maybe a pretty similar horse to Max Player in that he doesn't have a lot of speed. He's going to have to rally.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think the big difference is, though, that his recent form is not nearly as good as Max Player's in my eyes. So I'm not going to be using Enforceable on my tickets.
Yeah, he had a layoff and he came back with a reasonable race in the Bluegrass where he picked up some horses late, but it didn't excite me. It doesn't excite me to be down on the rail because he seems like he's always out in the middle of the track running wide. I don't know if he wants to go weave his way through horses. I'm probably not going to use Enforceable either. Number 4 is Storm the Court, Matt, and this is the first horse on the list so far that I think really could be at least close to the early pace.
Yeah, and Storm the Court, we talked about a little bit in our show last week, is a horse that hasn't won since he won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year, but is a horse who has been hitting the board in a lot of his starts. Tried the turf last time and got a second. So hard for me to have a lot of confidence in this guy. So I'm going to toss him.
Yeah, I'm not going to play him either. He's a little bit like enforceable for me, different running styles, but I think he's maybe he wouldn't shock me, but his form this year is just not good enough for me to consider him a major player this year. Number 5, Matt, is Major Fed, another horse who we expect to be coming from well back in this 18-horse field, 50-1 on the morning line.
Yes, I was encouraged by his second place finish in the Indiana Derby, maybe signaling that he's waking up to some of the good form that we saw earlier in the year. I am confident that he can get the distance. I'm going to use Major Fed in my wagers that we'll talk about tomorrow. And Major Fed is my number 4 pick in the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, you get some odds there, Matt. I will use him a little bit underneath, maybe superfecta, maybe trifecta, just to hit the board. As I will do the same with the number 6, King Guillermo. I think it's possible now. There's a little less speed, of course, with the defection. We haven't talked about it yet, Matt, but Art Collector is out of this Kentucky Derby. There's a little less speed now. Cheryl Spade is out of this Kentucky Derby. So King Guillermo, maybe with not a lot of speed around him, has a little bit better chance. He continues to look good in the mornings here at Churchill Downs. He's another horse I think I will throw in a little bit underneath.
Yeah, and I agree with that assessment. The scratches that have happened this past week have certainly been beneficial to King Guillermo. But overall, coming into the Derby on just works for the past 4 months is a tough thing. But he's certainly the buzz horse from the workouts, and I guess I'll use him a little bit defensively.
Same here. Use him defensively, as I will the number 7, the Todd Fletcher late edition money moves. He was an impressive looking horse. We haven't talked about him much because we didn't know he was going to run. Impressive winner of his first 2 races, Matt, and then he lost a photo at Saratoga when he stretched out to 9 furlongs. I don't think this is a easy spot for his stakes debut, but on the other hand, he's a horse I could see running a decent race. Maybe I'll just sprinkle him in at the bottom of the superfecta as well.
Yes, certainly he's a horse that's got talent. I think we've known that throughout this year, but just wasn't able to put together races and get that experience that I'd like to see. But I'll probably use him a little bit. It's going to be underneath, maybe on the bottom of the trifecta and or superfecta.
Yeah, another horse I will use down low in these exotics is the 8, South Bend, another late addition to the field. He's now trained by Bill Mott. I thought he ran a very good second in the Ohio Derby, running wide and late and really picking them up. And then his drivers wasn't bad, where he rallied for 4th there. I think he'll have to improve a little bit, but on the other hand, he's a consistent rallier who seems to be going pretty well. I considered putting him in my top 4, but I think instead he'll be a horse I use quite a bit underneath as a big long shot.
Yeah, convincing argument there, Brian Zipsy, but you just can't use every horse, so I don't think I'm going to use South Bend.
Fair enough. How about number 9, Mr. Big News? Now, you had him as a long shot back in the day earlier this spring. I don't think he's quite as good as some of the others we've already talked about, so I won't use him. Will you?
No, Brian, he's one of those horses that was back in that Oaklawn Stakes at close to 50-1. I picked him on top, but his performance in the Bluegrass was nothing to write home about. I'm not going to use Mr. Big News again.
Mr. Big News is a horse who probably wants a distance, so if you threw him into your exotics, I wouldn't yell at you. I'm just not quite ready to do it. Number 10, Matt, is 1,000 Words, and 1,000 Words is a bit of an enigma to me. He's been very good. He's been not so good. He's been good lately, especially the last race, but it was a 4-horse field with no pace, and he wired it. I'm not excited about him as the 4th choice in the Kentucky Derby. I'm probably going to take a stand against, but he does scare me a little bit.
Yeah, got to put one of those little warnings up on the screen, Brian, warnings to all the Bob Baffert horse supporters out there. Get revved up here. I'm sorry, I'm not going to use 1,000 Words in here. I just don't think that the 10 furlongs and the size of the field are going to be to his liking. I'm not saying he's going to run 18th or 17th, but I don't see him finishing in the top 4, so I'm not going to use 1,000 words.
Yeah, and you're probably seeing a pattern here, folks, where we're looking at these horses maybe third, more likely fourth to throw in a little bit. Horses Matt and I think can rally up. Those are the horses that usually really fill out those late spots in the exotics. Number 11 isn't one of those horses for me, Matt. Necker Island. I don't think he's got a big closing kick, nor do I think he's good enough. I don't have him on my tickets for sure.
Necker Island, toss.
Number 12 is Sole Volante, and he's a horse that I just still want to consider a little bit. I've seen him weave in and out of traffic a little bit. I've seen him rally. I'm not sure if he wants 10 furlongs. I'm not sure if he's in his best form. Didn't love his last race, but on the other hand, I've seen enough to be scared of him, and maybe he makes it onto one of those superfecta tickets where I have 6 or 7 horses in fourth.
Yeah, that would be the kind of place to use them. But all those not sures that you said, Brian, I kind of agree with them. I'm not going to use Sole Volante.
Number 13 is Attachment Rate, and I was a little surprised to see he was 50-1 on the morning line, Matt. Attachment Rate ran a pretty good race, as he's done several times now, a pretty good race to be second last time in the Ellis Park Derby. Again, the winner's out. Art Collector will not be in the Derby because of a minor heel issue, but Attachment Rate is, I'm not sure if he's a horse I want to play, but on the other hand, I could see him run a pretty good race and running 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, something like that.
Well, if you're not sure, Brian, all you have to do is listen to trainer Dale Romans, and he'll convince you that you should use Attachment Rate. I don't know. Maybe I've listened to Dale too much this past week with Attachment Rate. So I guess I'm considering using him maybe in the 4th spot and the 3rd spot a little bit.
Yeah, Dale is always sure, Matt Schiffman. We know that well. Dale is a very positive speaker about his horses. Yeah, Attachment Rate might, again, be one of those horses I throw in near the bottom, but not even one of the favorite ones for me that I like in here. Number 14 is Winning Impression. Dallas Stewart's done it before. I don't like this one, though.
Nope, not for me. Toss him.
Yeah, no speed and just not good enough. Now, interestingly, Matt, we get to 4 of the most interesting horses of the race, and they've drawn the outside 4 post positions. I've been saying for weeks now, New York Traffic will be my top long shot. Mike Battaglia pegged him at 20-1, which I'm pretty happy about. He drew the 15 hole, which I'm a little indifferent about. Maybe I wish he was a little farther inside, but I just think he's one of those horses that should run a good race, whether that means 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th, I don't know. But I think as a long shot, he's very interesting to me. On my list, Matt, I have him at number 3.
He's on my list also, Brian, and with scratches of Art Collector and Caracaro, he's found his way to my number 2 spot. Yeah, if he keeps doing what he's been doing, those really strong second place finishes, I see him being part of things when they come to the finish line.
Matt, I'm starting to smell an all New York bred exacta for you. Very, very interesting. I was the one more on New York Traffic a little while ago, and now you have him at 2. I have him at 3. Interesting. Well, my number 2 is a very strong number 2. I've liked Honor AP since the first time I saw him last summer, and I just think he's a horse made for this kind of race. 10 furlongs. Trained by John Shafts, ridden by Mike Smith. I'm disappointed he's now the clear second choice after the defection of Art Collector. But I think that last race is a throw for me. I think he's really going to appreciate the distance here, and I think he's this good. I couldn't quite pull the trigger and put him number 1 over Tisdalaw because I just have so much respect for how good Tisdalaw has gotten. But I really like Honor AP. He's my strong number 2.
Yeah, Brian, I'm a little speechless here for a second. I've got to regroup a little bit after hearing you put Honor AP in the number 2 spot. I was expecting you to have him on top. Honor AP moved into the top 4 for me with the defection of Art Collector and Caracaro. I'm going to have Honor AP at the number 3 spot. I've got some serious reservations about the horse, and it has nothing to do with his talent. or his trainer. It just has to do with the fact that he's making his first trip out of California, going into the big Derby field. I'm just really concerned about the travel and the and what he's going to run into here. I mean, he might run right by him, and that's why Honor AP is going to be in my wagers that we'll talk about tomorrow.
We'll find out more. Interesting. Different perspectives. We have the 15 and the 16, 2 and 3 in different positions. I think that means number 17. Now, no horse with the saddle cloth 17 has ever won the Kentucky Derby, Matt. But this year 17 is Tis the Law, 3-5, prohibitive favorite by Mike Battaglia on the morning line. I don't know if he'll be that low, but with Art Collector out, maybe he will be. He's looked super this year. He's proven at 10 furlongs after the Travers. I had to put him at number 1.
Yeah, an absolutely definitive number 1 for me. If we were doing it timeline style, Tis the Law would be number 1, and the other ones, 2, 3, and 4 would be way down in the diagram. Tis the Law has been on top of the Kentucky Derby trail virtually from the get-go, from when he won the Champagne, and has gone almost wire to wire as the favorite all of this time. He brings with him the features of recent Kentucky Derby winners, and I know it's in September now, and maybe all that gets thrown out, but maybe he doesn't. He's unbeaten at 3 years old. He's won a 100-point race, and he's got that stalking running style. And virtually every horse since the point system has begun that has crossed the finish line in first in the Kentucky Derby has had those 3 characteristics. Tis the Law, number 1 for me.
Tis the Law certainly looks good. He's certainly the one to beat. I don't mind the draw at 17 so much, or the 16 draw for Honor AP for that matter. I think those are the 2 horses to beat, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of trip they can work from the outside. Probably Tis the Law will move up pretty swiftly and get a good position. Honor AP will be more in the middle, but being outside probably won't hurt either one of them. I'm not so sure about the 18 Authentic. Last time he had an outside post, he broke awkwardly outward in the Santa Anita Derby, and he was no match for Honor AP in the stretch at all in that Santa Anita Derby. I don't like the fact that he was getting caught in the Haskell, for lack of a better phrase. He was getting caught in the Haskell, 9 furlong Haskell last time. I really never was confident of him as a 10 furlong horse before that, Matt. Third choice in here, 18 Hall. I'm just not loving Authentic, but I will say one thing. The fact that Art Collector is out maybe helps his chances just a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that, but Bob Baffert fans, you might want to turn the volume down now. Yeah, I think the 18 hole does not help with Authentic, and that was a really good point you made about him breaking outwardly from the outside post before. Mike Smith and the Haskell blamed the near loss on Authentic's tendency to look around and get distracted by things, and outside in that gate, it might be tough for him to break straight and get to where he wants to get to on the lead as quickly as possible. Again, I'm not saying Authentic is going to finish 18th, but I'm not using him in any of my wagers.
Yeah, and we're taking a stand partly because of the odds. He's the third choice here, folks, so we don't see the value in Authentic. And, I think he's going to have to rush right out to the lead from that outside post, so he better break well to do it. And then even then, he's got to continue to cut over and try to not be hung out to dry a little bit as they hit the first turn in this 1.25 mile Kentucky Derby. Well, folks, there you have it, our top 4 picks in each race. Again, we will have bets on the next show for the Derby and much more. But Matt went Tis the Law, New York Traffic, 2 New York breds on top, 1-2 there. He got some odds with New York Traffic at second. He has Honor AP as his third pick, and Major Fed, a long shot as well in the 4 spot. For me, I also had to put Tis the Law first. I just think he is the most likely winner, but I think Honor AP has a big shot as the main challenger in here. He's my number 2. I also like New York Traffic as my best long shot number 3, and I think Max Player is the most likely horse to throw out those exotics. So he's my number 4. Matt, we're just going to keep rolling here. Let's jump right into the Kentucky Oaks. We're going to do it a little different here, Matt. We're going to start with the favorite, even money on the morning line is Kameen. She looks so good in both the Acorn and the Test.
Absolutely did. Brian has crossed the finish line in front in all 4 of her races. One of them was turned into a disqualification with the drug violation. How good is Kameen? Well, I guess this is the test. We will find out. But those last 2 races in New York were super impressive 1-turn performances. Kameen has gone 2 turns, won an allowance race at Oaklawn Park going 2 turns, did it by only a neck. Did that have something to do with the 2 turns? I don't know. Or being at Oaklawn Park? We'll find out in the Kentucky Oaks, but Kameen, even money, with those huge victories. Bob Baffert is the trainer. I think she'll be the favorite.
Oh, yeah, I think she'll be the favorite too. And I think even money or maybe even lower coming off those blowout wins. She won the Grade 1 races, the 1 mile Acorn, the 7 furlong Test by more than a combined 25 lengths. So she could be a generational type of talent here. But on the other hand, this is the Kentucky Oaks, and at even money 4 to 5. And with a really other good speed horse in here and only her 2nd time at 2 turns. I will say, that allowance race did have speech in it. So the fact that she was a narrow winner of her 2-turn race, it was speech. So that was like a stakes race for sure. But I'm willing to take a shot against her. I'm going to throw her in my bets, but I am willing to take a shot against her as the big favorite as well. I just think it's a really interesting setup here because I think Kameen and Swiss Skydiver, they're speed horses, and Swiss Skydiver's on the rail, and Kameen's outsider. I think this could set up as a mano a mano. Who's got the bigger cojones of these 2 fillies? I realize, folks, that neither has cojones as fillies, but you know what I mean. I think this could be a real battle early, and I would be disappointed if one of the 2 horses and or jockeys laid off this early lead. It's setting up as an early showdown. And I think, frankly, it might possibly cost them both because there's some good horses in here besides these 2. Having said all that, Matt, obviously Swiss Skydiver's got to be a pretty clear second choice.
Yeah, and it certainly is a test for both of them to see, are they both as good as their records seem to indicate they are? Because they're going to have to withstand going head-to-head in the Kentucky Oaks, and maybe, I don't know, maybe they'll be able to do it. Maybe they're going to knock heads all the way around the racetrack, and one of them's going to win the race, and the other one's going to finish second. That could certainly happen. We'll find out if maybe they aren't able to withstand that kind of battle. As you mentioned, Brian, there's a lot of very nice horses in this field. We mentioned speech already. Donna Veloce, coming back off a little bit of a layoff, has done some really good things out there. She shares the devil, so it's a really good field of 9.
Yeah, and Matt, I'm getting back to Swiss Skydiver. I have so much respect for what she's done this year, everything she's done this year. But on the other hand, this is her 8th race of the year. This is her 8th different track running at this year. I wonder, especially coming out of 1.25 miles Alabama, yes, it was an easy win, but still coming out of 1.25 miles Alabama, if eventually she's going to say enough is enough, this is an awful lot to ask of a young 3-year-old filly. I have a feeling we might see that on Friday because Kameen Outsider is a daunting speed horse outsider in this toughest test of her life. And the fact that 8 races, 8 different tracks, she's been tested so much already. I have a feeling that Swiss Skydiver might finally will just a little bit under this Kentucky Oaks pressure. I do like Speech a lot. Speech is the 3rd choice in here. I was a little surprised that Speech is so far ahead of horses like Donna Veloce and She Dares the Devil on the morning line. But Speech sure looked good. She was knocking on the door for a while, and I know Donna Veloce beat her early in the year, but I think Speech has only gotten better since that. Her best race was clearly their last one, where she won the Ashland pretty easily over a nice speed horse in Venetian Harbor. I think she sits a dream trip. I think she's going great. I think she sits a dream trip behind those two heavy hitters going at it early. And I like Speech. I like her a lot in here. And it just looks like a setup for her. I'm not sure if 9 furlongs is as good for her as 8.5. But if the setup is right, I could definitely see Speech winning this and upsetting both of the favorites.
Hey, classic handicapping strategy there, Brian Zipsy. Two horses that like to be on front, knocking heads. Something's got to give, and Speech would be the likely candidate to turn the upset.
Yeah, and I will say this: you never know what the track's going to be like. Sometimes for these big days, they turn it up a bit where they try to make it too fast and it favors speed. And you never know, maybe Kameen or Swiss Skydiver won't get out, won't break well, or whatever the case, won't run well early on. And that changes the complexion. But as I see it, those two are going to go pretty hard at each other. And that makes me like Speech even more. Donna Veloce has a similar running style, Matt. I just don't like the fact that she's been away for 6 months. Obviously a talented filly. She couldn't quite get over the top in a couple of races late last year and early this year, and that's just I'm picking at small things there because I think she's been terrific in her career. But in this field, I gotta like Speech better. Same type of running style, considering that Donna Veloci's been off for 4 months. She dares the devil though. I 20-1 on the morning line. I mean, she's getting better for Brad Cox. And she can also stay in touch early and then have a little closing kick. I liked her winning the Indiana Oaks.
Yeah, the Brad Cox magic seems to be starting to work on She Dares the Devil. It's going to be an exciting version of the Oaks. I'm gonna stick with Swiss Skydiver as my top choice, and Kameen in second, and Speech in third.
There you go. Okay. Real quick, we'll run down the other horses. Hopeful Growth could be getting better with that nice win in the Monmouth Oaks, but I think this is a world removed from the Monmouth Oaks, and that's her home base. So I'm having a feeling she doesn't get it done like she did last time in the Monmouth Oaks. Tempers Rising is not as good as these, but if the pace is suicidal, she might be the one picking up the pieces late to get a share. Dream Marie and Baroness both look a little bit overmatched in here for me. So the bottom four, I think it's a struggle to recommend them, Matt.
Yeah, I agree with that, Brian. We've already mentioned other horses that are going to be there in case the pace collapses. So I would stick with them over the bottom four for sure.
There you go. All right. And for me, I'm going to pick an upset in here. Matt's going Swiss Skydiver, Kameen, Speech, Donna Veloce is his top four. I'm going to shake it up. I'm going to predict that they do battle early and then they just get a little weary late. Swiss Skydiver, as much as I like her, I'm going to put her way down in fourth. Kameen, the other speed horse, I'm very afraid of because, like I said, she could be a generational talent. But I'm going to put her down in third, considering the odds and considering the pressure she'll have stretching out to 9 furlongs. So my top two are Speech, 5-1 on the morning line. She Dares the Devil, 20-1 on the morning line in the Kentucky Oaks. Matt, I want to mention a couple other great races on Friday, or really nice horses running. Let's start with that Ali Sheba, which is 2 races before the Kentucky Oaks. By my standards, the defending champ McKinsey, other horses in there like Owendale, Bodie Express, Mr. Freeze. What do you think is going to happen in the Ali Sheba?
Well, it's a heck of a field, Brian, and a lot of the big names from the older male division, all horses who have won some nice races this year, from Silver Dust, Owendale, Mr. Freeze, by my standards, McKinsey. Hey, you've got some horses that on their day are pretty tough performers. But the question is in here, which one of them is going to have their day? Which ones of these horses is going to be at the top of their game for the Ali Sheba? Because I have question marks about all of them. And I certainly am not going to like the odds that are likely to come on McKenzie after, I know nothing went well for him in the Met Mile, and he's not a horse that runs well with races that are closely spaced. So he's had a little time off. He won this race last year, but not for me at 8-5 or maybe lower. I've liked a bunch of the other ones, but I guess I'm going to stick with By My Standards in here.
Yeah, and I think he's the deserving favorite. If you look at their form this year, By My Standards has been terrific in 5 races, winning the first 3, and then running second to big heavy hitters, Tom Stay Todd and Improbable last time. So By My Standards has the form. McKenzie, if you look at the Ali Sheba last year, and I know it's 16 months removed, that was an awesome performance, and that's what he can do in these middle distance races sometimes. I worry though that McKenzie's not as good this year as he has been in past years, so it's a question. I think both are tough horses, and I think both will be close to this pace, and I think both will be low. I think both will be under 2-1, and both might be even closer to even money. I wouldn't be surprised if McKenzie is the favorite over By My Standards due to past history and maybe the Baffert Smith factor a little bit. I'm looking another way, actually. I think Mr. Freeze didn't show enough speed recently, and I think he will finally show more speed again in here, and I think he adds a little spice to that early pace. And Bodie Express, too. He'll add speed to there. So I just think there might be a little race set up for my old friend Owendale. I think Owendale likes middle distances. I think the odds will be right this time, coming off a rather dull performance in the Foster. But I know he does like Churchill Downs. I know he can rally at this 8.5 furlong distance. And if they're all worried about each other up front, Owendale might come running. While I picked upsets in the Kentucky Oaks and the Ali Sheba, Matt, I will not do it in the La Troyenne. That's the home of Monomoy Girl. Matt, she's finished first in 12 out of 13 lifetime starts. She was taken down once. She's finished second in the only time that any horse ever finished ahead of her, and that was way back as a 2-year-old. I know she had a lot of time off, but Monomoy Girl just continues to amaze me.
Yeah, that's for sure. She looks like her old self with both of her victories this year, including her win in the Ruffian earlier in the summer. It looks like Monomoy Girl is back, but again, this is a decent field. I guess we've got to talk about Vexatious, who's listed at 4-1 in the morning line, who did the unthinkable in the Personal Ensign when she upset Midnight Bazoo. Can she pull off the double upset and knock off Monomoy Girl? I don't know. That would be quite an achievement.
Yeah, and I think Vexatious is the one that Monomoy Girl has to beat. She beat her in the Ruffian, and it didn't look like Vexatious was ever going to get to Monomoy Girl in the Ruffian. I don't think she's going to run quite as big coming back. She's been a little inconsistent in her career, and she threw in a huge effort to beat Midnight Bazoo last time. So I think Vexatious is going to be hard-pressed to turn the tables 2 races removed from that good second behind Monomoy Girl in the Ruffian. But I think she's the one, if she runs her best, that can really give Monomoy Girl a run. Lady Kate's coming off a nice win at Ellis Park against Cheaper. Horologist might be taking another step forward, and she's won some big races at Monmouth Park. She's a Julie, has run some good races, although she's been oddly inconsistent this year. But for me, Matt, this race, the La Troyenne, really is all about Monomoy Girl, and just another notch in her belt is what I'm expecting.
Yeah, I'm expecting that also, Brian, and I agree. Even though I was talking about Vexatious pulling off the double upset, that would be just something completely unexpected to be able to beat both of these top females. And like you said, Horologist is getting better, and particularly on the switch to the barn of Bill Mott. But I'm going with Monomoy Girl.
Okay, we're both going with Monomoy Girl, and we got our picks in for the Derby, our top 4 in the Derby, a top 4 in the Oaks. Our Derby's pretty similar. The Oaks, we strayed pretty far apart there. I'm trying Owendale in the Alashiba. I love Monomoy Girl. You're talking by my standards in Monomoy Girl, and those two nice older races on Oaks undercard. Good show, Matt. Any parting shots from you today?
Yeah, great going through the Oaks and the Derby fields. And tomorrow, come back and look for the third installment of HorseCenter Kentucky Derby style. Brian and I will give you our favorite wagers from both days for you to consider. And as always, I want to thank our producer, Brett Workman, for putting together the show.
Yeah, tomorrow should be a good show with our suggested wagers. Thanks to Brett. Thanks for all you watching. We hope you have a great weekend out of Churchill Downs, betting the Kentucky Oaks, Kentucky Derby, and all these good races. Thanks to our sponsor, the best contest site out there, Derby Wars. And folks, if you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel here on Horse Racing Nation, please go ahead and do that for us. We appreciate it. We'll see you again, I guess, in 24 hours right here on HorseCenter.